quitting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa and
Sam Works.
The morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports radio station KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, iTunes, TuneIn, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, and more. Why so many places? Because I want the maximum splatter zone where I can, just ask you to drink the rose-colored Kool-Aid that life is good. It does not suck. So there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K words, no Kardashian talk at all. No Kanye, no Davison, nothing. Just topics and guests to help you learn and expand and grow into happiness 88% of the time. And today is Thursday, and you know what that means? It is time for Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and Sam Works. And Sam surprised me this morning with an actual 3D moving display of him, which I'm so excited because I know that y'all wanted to see him. We got a little better with the picture last week, but now we have the full on, so you can see why it's kind of funny that we call this Straight Talk, but we are both straight and we are both single, and we'll see how long that lasts. And Sam gets to pick the topics, and he's, picked some really interesting topics, from post-pandemic dating to what men want. Now we're talking today about open relationships. So you will have to share this as we going to jump in to bed. Jump into this topic right after two things. First, we're going to start with our regular have breakfast with Salmon and I and take a bite of your gratitude sandwich. So you know the drill, 8 specific gratitudes so that we start our day in the most positive way. Sam, you get to start.
Well, let me first start off. I'm grateful for coffee because when we first started this show, I was falling asleep, but now I'm ready to roll.
I'm grateful that you look bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm also grateful for, my family to support me in my, my vision, my future, everything.
Fantastic. I'm grateful that you got the camera working. So we're now both equally on camera.
Yes. I'm grateful for this computer because my mom got me it for Christmas. If I went to college, I did for a little bit, but then I dropped out. Here we are.
Okay. Well, let's just stay with the computer part. I'm grateful for your mom, who sounds so lovely. And one of these days I will meet her because I feel like I kind of know her from knowing you and all the stuff we talk about. So I'm grateful for her. So that's our 8 specific gratitudes. Now we go to the bottom of the bun, which is 8 specific appreciations. What do you appreciate about yourself, Sam? And as specific as possible, things that I want you to think about before you go to bed so that you're not thinking about all the things that happened wrong.
Okay. Well, this might sound a little conceited, but I am grateful for my good looks because it's taken me a long, long way.
Well, at least you recognized it. Yeah, I'm great. I appreciate that I pick really cute co-hosts. That's more like a gratitude. Sorry.
Is this your first time seeing me? live or what?
Yeah, literally.
What do you think? I'm just kidding.
So like only pictures. We'll talk about that in a second. I appreciate that I am creative.
There you go. I like that. I appreciate that I'm able to wake up in the morning.
I appreciate that I am good at self-improvement.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's important. I am grateful that
I appreciate.
I appreciate myself that I am willing to be your co-host and to talk about these topics.
I appreciate that I have no fear, and I usually will talk about and do anything once. I think that's. One more.
Okay, I
Top that.
appreciate who I am and the person I'm becoming to be.
I appreciate that. This is going to sound conceited, that I am inspiring.
There you go.
I've been told that I'm #relentlessly inspiring. So I receive that.
You are a motivator.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm now 2 for 2 beating you in the applause.
Ooh.
So we are, before we start into this whole topic, I have a great message, a back to school message. You remember Bill Nye, the science guy, and this is a young woman who is really inspiring herself, and she has a message for us. I got to talk to her yesterday.
And you're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And I have a very special guest today. Her name is Emily Calandrelli. And she's here because it's that time of the year again. School is in session, and I think we can all agree every child deserves a safe, clean, and healthy ride to school. Joining us today, as I mentioned, Emily, and she is an Emmy-nominated host of Emily's Wonder Lab on Netflix. She's an MIT engineer who shares her love of astronomy and science alongside Bill Nye, the Science Guy, and other shows. My daughters are going to be so excited that you're on my show. Now, Calandrelli is teaming with Energy for Everyone to promote a sustainable alternative for powering school buses. So how do you go from MIT to hosting a popular Netflix show for kids?
Oh my gosh. Well, a little bit of luck. It's certainly a dream of mine to have a platform on Netflix. But, I've always been really interested in getting kids excited about science. I studied aerospace engineering for nearly a decade. And even throughout that decade, I was always finding myself in the elementary school classroom and the middle school classroom and talking to young kids about the awesome science and engineering concepts that I was learning in grad school and in my college courses. And so for me, it was a natural transition to go from doing that to hosting my own science show and talking to even more people about all the reasons that I love science.
Well, that's wonderful. Kudos to you, because we definitely need more role models for young girls, that science is cool and we have brains. And so that's really wonderful. Kudos to you for that. So what does the science tell us about school bus emissions?
Right. Yeah. So I'm passionate about kids. I'm passionate about kids' futures. And this is why I care so much about this, because I'm sure a lot of people listening are similar to me in that they went to school on a dirty diesel bus 25 years ago or so. And I still remember the smell of the exhaust. The smell of that diesel bus exhaust brings back memories. And the other thing I remember is out of the tailpipe, there would always be this thick black smoke. And in that thick black smoke, there are particles, there is particulate matter, there are nitrous oxide emissions, things that are bad for the environment, and they're bad for kids' lungs. And it's no good. And there's still a lot of diesel buses operating today. But the good news is that today there are better alternatives. There are cleaner alternatives like propane school buses, where for just a little bit more cost than cheap diesel buses, you get drastically reduced emissions. You actually, with the propane school bus, you reduce those nitrous oxide emissions by 96%, which is it's huge.
Wow. That is huge. Now, how does propane compare to electric buses?
Yeah, great question. Because when we think of clean vehicles, we often think electric. Electric is great. I drive an electric car myself. Electric school buses exist, and they're great. They don't have those same emissions. The thing that you have to consider with electric school buses, though, is that they're expensive. You can get 3 propane school buses for the cost of 1 electric bus. And what that means ultimately is that the people who can afford to change their entire fleet to electric school buses are from wealthier school districts. They're from richer neighborhoods. And that's the part that matters to me, because I don't think you should have to be from a wealthy area to be able to afford clean air. And this is why I'm a big proponent of these propane school buses, because they cost a lot less and you still get a lot of those drastically reduced emissions for cleaner air for our kids.
That's great. Now, why are the costs associated with alternative energy sources important?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because people might ask, like, if diesel buses are so bad, then why do they exist all around the country? Why do so many school districts still use them? And the big reason is because of cost. I mean, it costs money to change your school buses. And one of the things that I want people to walk away with, that I want people to know about, is that the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, obviously has a stake in this because of the environmental impacts of buses. And they have a very cool program called the Clean School Bus Program, where they are offering $5 billion, with a B, $5 billion over the next 5 years to school districts who are willing to change from their dirty diesel buses to cleaner buses like propane school buses. So they're helping you pay for it, which is really exciting. So it's a good time to be thinking about this, to be talking to your school districts about changing your fleet to make sure that you guys can have safer air to breathe.
That's awesome. I've heard all day, and kudos for a government agency for doing that. What else should we know about school bus safety? Yeah,
these propane school buses, they've been in operation for decades. They're a reliable way to bring kids to school. And if you want to learn more about how to apply for those grants that I talked about from the EPA, if you want to learn more about propane school buses, if you want to learn more about how to even talk to your school district about changing your school buses to cleaner school buses, you can find all of that information at betterourbuses.com.
Fantastic. This is right in line. I've been covering climate change. So this is a huge area. I didn't realize how wide is the impact that buses have on the environment?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about the stuff coming out of the exhaust that impacts the air that we breathe, that impacts the air that our communities breathe. But there's also the other component when you're considering like propane versus electric, for example, is the electrical grid, because electricity has to come from somewhere. It has to be powered by something. And depending on where you're at, that something may not be so clean. Here in California, the electric grid is fairly clean, run by a lot of renewable resources. But in places, I'm originally from West Virginia. In West Virginia, a lot of their electricity still comes from coal. So depending on where you're at, you think you buy an electric bus and it's a one and done mission. You've got a clean source, but you're still powering that with electricity. And depending on where that electricity is coming from, it may not be as clean as you think it is. So it really depends on where you live and what is the best solution for your community.
Yeah, that's a very important point. So it's wonderful. Thank you for all of this information. Definitely, if you are a parent that's still send your kid to school on a bus that is not necessarily clean. There's places to go. Again, if you could give me the website to go, where to go for information.
Yeah, go to betterourbuses.com, betterourbuses.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Emily, for coming on and sharing this very important news. Thanks for your tips on going back to school, and I'm sure that the kids will be better equipped to help our environment with this information. Thanks so much, Emily. Have a great
day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
It was really wonderful getting a chance to catch up with her and talk about back to school. And isn't that great? Again, part of the solution, I talked about climate change last week, and now here's a wonderful example of the EPA actually offering billions of
We are having a sound problem.
Here we go. It was me. I am here. If you've just tuned in and wondering what's going on, we're having a little technical difficulty. I should not have tried to add Instagram onto LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Sam is here. His device is not connected right now, Sam. So if you can get back on your laptop, that was the ticket that got you in. But we're going to talk about open relationships, and this gives me time to actually do my thing where I love to Google. We actually in our house call it Christina It or Aaron It, because my nephew and niece both work for Google. So I'm just going to Google open relationships, because this is how we make technology work for us. And then I'm going to share the screen. Oh, yay. You're back. Thank goodness. It was like, what a tease. You have you on and then we lose you. We're definitely not going to try to do Instagram until we figure that out properly because it just is a pain in the neck. But here we go. Not the people on Instagram, just adding technology. StreamYard. Sorry, not StreamYard. I Googled open relationship, Sam, and it says an open relationship is an intimate relationship that is sexually non-monogamous. The term is distinct. Oh, see, I love when I do this because I learn stuff. Is distinct from polyamory in that it generally indicates a relationship where there is a primary emotioned and intimate relationship between two partners who agree to at least the possibility of sexual or emotional intimacy with other people. So it is different. I thought it was the same thing as polyamorism, but I am wrong. So that was the good first distinction. Are you? I don't hear you. Can you talk?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Thank goodness. Okay. You want to, it's not, okay, let me do the volume. So did you know that open relationships are different than polyamorism?
I didn't. You want to go over the difference one more time?
Sure. So open relationship is intimate that is sexually non-monogamous. So it's an intimate relationship with one person. Sorry. Yes, an intimate relationship with one person, but they are not sexually intimate with just one person. So polyamory is you're intimate with more than one person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So open relationship is you have a primary and then you have extra.
Right.
Toppings or bottomings. Sorry. And then polyamory is you have multiple primary toppings and bottomings. Okay. So why did you want to talk about this?
Because I feel like everyone in today's age, like in my age group, are kind of confused and they're trying to find their own ways compared to the traditional ways. And it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, statistically, 52% of marriages get into divorce. You know, and for people,
it's higher now.
It's higher.
I think so. Let me look it up. Keep talking.
So I think people are just trying to find a different route and try to please themselves. And it's a little selfish, I'm not going to lie, because, I mean, the only reason why they choose to go that route is because of their self feelings. You know, it's like, hey, like, yes, I want to have sex with you. However, there's a bunch of other people in the world that I want to, you know, try or taste or, you know, whatever the lingo is. But I do think there's a problem with that, you know? And I'm not going to get religious. However, like sticking with one person, like if you didn't have sex until marriage, you know, there is a chemical, emotional intimacy bond that makes you guys stick together. But if you're out there, you know, having fun with a bunch of people, then it kind of dilutes the intimacy. And a lot of people are with each other because they can provide something that most people can't, which is like love, intimacy, and all that good stuff. But if you take that away, if you take that variable away from the equation, then I don't know what other reason there is to be with somebody. You know what I mean? Other than financially or emotionally. But if you're out there having sex with everybody, then you can find that anytime you do, you know? So I don't really agree with today's society. However, there are pros and cons, good and bad. There's a balance to it. However, I'd never seen that side of it. So the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I want your personal opinion. You being ageless and going through the years, you probably understand a little more than I do. However, I'm living my life as a young 20-year-old, while you probably went through experiences, you probably went through marriages, like whatever the case may be, but we're standing on two different stones in the lake,
That's good. Which one's more slippery?
I think mine might be a little more slippery.
You think yours is more slippery, less stable? Okay. So I pulled this up, which I thought was really interesting. Not just, it says 50%. So I'm kind of surprised. It actually says 50%, and which is less than 52. And I actually found 44.2 that it's going down. I'm surprised. I guess there was less going to lawyers during COVID. I don't know, but it's an interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe being in lockdown, going through COVID probably helped. You're with your spouse, your loved one, and it's like y'all probably bonded. You probably couldn't go out there and have that fun.
Yeah, so. Maybe states with the highest divorce rates: Arkansas, Oklahoma, Nevada, New Mexico. Lowest, Maine, District of Columbia, South Dakota, Pennsylvania, New York. Interesting. California is not the top or the bottom.
So East Coast is the least.
It looks like that. Yeah.
A little interesting.
They'd have to do more research on that. But what's interesting for me, if you're asking my view, so the first story is I had probably, the show's 9 years old, so like 6 years ago, early on, I had a guy on the show who introduced himself as polyamorous, and I said, "Oh, people tell me that I am all the time, and it's like my middle name, and." My sound engineer at the time looked at me and went like this. And I'm like, what? He goes, Dr. Marissa, that's Pollyanna you're talking about, not polyamorous. And then I think because you're right. It wasn't a term 8 years ago that was very familiar. And now they have reality shows about that. They have, I get caught up in some of those funny love at first sight or the blind date that ends up in marriage or whatever. That I think they were hilarious. I don't watch The Bachelor or Bachelorette. I don't know why, but maybe it was COVID. But I thought it was really interesting how some of the men, actually said, well, I'm polyamorous. And that was it's becoming more, I don't know if it's mainstream, but certainly more open. In my ageless days, I think the closest it came was swingers. You knew about swingers. I was actually approached on Catalina Island by a couple, and I was completely, incredibly floored because I'd never, encountered it. And, the guy said, I find you very attractive. And I said, thank you very much. Don't let your wife know, as a joke. And he goes, well, actually, she finds you very attractive too. And I it's so rare, Sam, that I'm speechless, but I tell you, it was a good 5 minutes. That dog, when a dog hears a sound that they don't understand and they go, so that was me.
Yeah.
So that was my first encounter. I know that I grew up very religious. And so not only was that not kosher in any sense of the word, it was a sin. And you would go to hell if you even looked at someone else or thought about someone else. They also were big proponents of no sex until you're married. You can date, but necking is literally from the neck up. So I was tremendously confused and messed up by religion and sex and I remember my first time was out of wedlock. I can't believe I'm saying this on the air. Well, actually, I can believe it. The first time I can remember saying to myself, well, then it's okay because we're going to get married. And this was in college, and it was after a Christmas party, and it was a cute guy in my math class. And I, had a little too much to drink, ended up at his place. And after it happened, and believe me, it was, nothing to write home about. And as a first experience, it was horrific. And it was made even worse horrific by the fact that here I am thinking, it's okay, we did it, we're going to get married. And then we did date for maybe a month. And then his best friend said to me, oh, I said, where is he? I'm not using his name just in case. Where is he? And his best friend said, oh, he's waiting for so-and-so who he wants to ask out. And I said, I thought later on when we were out, I said to him, I understand that you're you're going after so-and-so redhead. And you see how this is ageless years ago, but it's very clear in my head. And he said, oh, I said, I thought we were, going out, or I thought you were my boyfriend. And he goes, why would you think that? And I said, because we've been intimate for the last month. And he goes, haven't you ever heard of casual sex?
Ooh.
And I said, no. And he goes, welcome to college.
No way. Welcome to college. Oh my gosh.
So as you can see, my history and experience with sex on top of the, sin and all that from religion has completely messed up my ability to have a lot of joy when it comes to intimate relationships, which is why I started Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa on my show as a regular monthly series when I was on once a week in the afternoon. So now you understand why, because I want to heal around this. And I think because we didn't plan on talking about all of these things with our series, but I think it's a great accidental not accidental thing that I'm basically continuing that series with you. And it's even better because now I have a young man's perspective on things like that. So there, I just put the moose on the table about my own sex life. So what's your reaction?
I'm shocked. Honestly. Do you think that he was the one to marry, or was that Christmas?
It was all religion. It was all the religious pressure of nowadays you don't even know. Premarital sex is a term that people don't even, I'm sure there's youngins out there is like, what does that mean? No premarital sex, because it's just so acceptable and normal that you better sample the goods before you get married. But in those days, it was a big deal. It was like if you had premarital sex, you were, a puttana in the Italian language. I don't know how much of the bad words. I don't want to get dumped, but get ready with the dump button. But, SLUT, all of those things, that was the judgment. And so I can only imagine for the conservative, born-again Christian, fundamental evangelical, that we're even having this conversation is a taboo. And I'm glad that we are, because you're right. Your generation is actively, exploring this, and not just your generation. I think, the swingers have now come into their own, because they've been practicing polyamorism, maybe not with that word, or open relationships. But what do you think that, and I had this at the yacht club yesterday, because I race sailboats on Wednesdays. I actually flew this topic by because most of my sailmates are men. And I said, do you think you could actually have an open relationship? And 100% was no. And I was kind of surprised. I guess my bias is religion aside, for me, I can barely manage a relationship with one guy. I can't even imagine trying to keep it straight of who I'm in love with and who I'm not in love with and who I'm having sex with and who I'm having an emotionally intimate, blah, 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 blah. So can it happen? Absolutely. My guess would be most people would not feel good unless it's truly believable that both partners truly believe that they could do that. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I definitely don't think it's the majority.
Well, the three things that pop in my head when I think about this is confusion.
Which head? Sorry.
Confusion, jealousy, and diseases. Like those are the three things to watch out for, right? Because even though, your spouse is like, oh, that's okay, and then they see you having more fun with the other person, it's a little jealousy. And then you get the confusion where it's like, oh, you like her. No, I don't. I like you, blah, blah, blah. And then you got to watch out for diseases, right? Because that's all part of the game. And I feel like that's where religion comes in, where that's a good thing, because if you're both virgins, well, diseases, confusion, and jealousy is out of the question. However, imagine being with somebody and you're not having fun in bed. Like, you're going to be chasing that because you don't have it.
Well, like my promo, right? When I had those guys on, Clyde Terry was honest. If I'm not getting it from you, I'm going to be getting it from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But is it possible, Sam, to have every part of your relationship fulfilled except that one? Is it reason enough to stay in that relationship? So that's a question I wanted to ask you. What percent is intimacy in bed an important part of the relationship? And maybe for you, it might be different than for ageless category, because I've met so many women who say, it's so much more important that he, sits with me and cuddles and watches a show with me than we have like hot sex. But the guy is still wanting that or not.
Well, I don't know who's more into it, guys or girls, but I know for sure guys are dogs. So it's like the frequency of how often we want it compared to, women, because they're the ones taking it. It's probably different, like I said, my ex, like she was the more like cuddle, spend time, this and this. If it was like a week that's gone by without us having fun, then I get a little worried. I'm like, wait, time out. Like, what's the matter? You know what I mean? For other people, it's very different. They have higher frequencies, higher libidos. So it's really up to you and the partner.
Has it changed for you between teenage and 20s?
No. I had a girlfriend who was highly active, and I was like, girl, I'm tired. Like,
Now, you think it was because she was trying to please you, or she really was like an animal?
Oh, she was an animal.
We got a thumbs up on that one. I'm not sure which part of the conversation got the thumbs up. And if you've tuned in and you're wondering, what the fork are they talking about this morning? It's way too early. You already had your gratitude sandwich. You have something in your stomach. But you are tuned into our wonderful Thursday regular series called Straight Talk with Sam Works and Dr. Marissa. And we are talking about open relationships because Sam wanted to talk about that. So if you have any questions or comments, please do put it in the chat and we'll put it up here. And right now, it's the consensus between the both of us sounds like it might be a good idea for a few, but for most people, because I got that same reaction, the jealousy came out in almost every person that I talked to, men, and they were all men. I didn't even talk to any women last night because there's not many in the yacht club. But I agree that even if you said, I'm good with that, wait till you see your insignificant, your significant other, laughing and, having a romp in whatever hay and having a great time. There's got to be jealousy, because how can you watch someone have a relationship with someone else and not feel, why am I not good enough? Why am I not fulfilling most or all of your needs? So we grew up with that, though, like the complete me, Cinderella, one prince. There weren't 5 princes that came in. So we grew up with that. I wonder if there's studies of people that grow up in a polyamorous commune, for lack of a better word. Wasn't there a reality show where multiple wives or something like that? What was that called? I don't like sister wives. Somebody help me with that. Let me Google that. It was, when I heard it come on, I couldn't believe they were actually doing a show on this. But yeah, it's called Sister Wives, a reality show for 17 seasons. Let's see, episode guide, trailers, cast. Where is it? It's an American reality television series on TLC that premiered in 2010. The show documents the life of a polygamist family that becomes essentially monogamist in later seasons, which includes father Cody Brown, his 4 wives, and their 18 children. Did you know that existed? No, I didn't. Honestly, I would say the only good thing about that is, like, if I had 4 wives and I was tired of one of them, I can just go to the other. You know what I mean? Like that. You are a dog. That was a dog statement. No, I'm just saying. It's like, if she gives you a headache, you know what I mean? Like, you well, okay, so let's talk about history. So concubines in China, that was the thing. You had the queen and then you had concubines. So this is obviously a modern version of that. Hopefully we have grown beyond that, because we never had multiple husbands. Why is it that it's always, a guy that has multiple wives? That's, again, extremely misogynistic and sexist and all of that. But anyways, let's go back to multiple. So one of the deeper questions is it possible for one person to meet all of your needs? I guess because one of the reasons that I read up on having an open relationship is because there's something missing, but you don't want to lose that person, because you still want to have them. So let's say they satisfy every part of you except the excitement in the bedroom. So is it okay to go out and do that? Or let's say the woman is asexual, doesn't get into sex at all. So, but in every other way, they complete that person. Is it okay to do that? You see, that's a good question. I would say it's up to the couple. For me, if she was like asexual, I'm not okay with that, but it's like, all right, I can handle that for a little bit,
But if we're talking about our whole lives together, like that, sex is a part of life, you know? So if she can't provide that, well, you know what I mean? It's a little different because if she's asexual, then she probably doesn't want kids. She probably doesn't want to do all that. Me, my lifestyle, I want a kid when I'm older and when I'm settled. So she better not be asexual, right? At least until she's ready, which I can wait. I have patience. However, if it's never going to come, then it's kind of just like wasting your time.
No, no pun intended or pun intended?
No pun intended.
I'm so bad.
So
Okay. All right. So, but it is one of those things, like when I was talking to the actor Benjamin Carlton about the LGBTQIA plus, I was educated that is now the valuing term. The A stands for asexual. And I know that when my younger daughter came home and we were talking about, so how are your friends? And, we do this check-in and all these kids that used to come and, hang out at our place. I loved having, so I've got all these I have a Hispanic son and I have a gay son and I have a redheaded son, all of their friends. And she said, so-and-so has realized she's asexual. And I was like, really? Like, what does that mean? She goes, she's really just not interested in sex. So that's another term that wasn't on my radar before, which is the opposite of having open relationships and open sex or polygamy.
So maybe she never had good sex before. I don't know. Can't judge. However,
that's such a guy thing to say. Oh my God.
I'm just saying, if she was not pleased all the time she was in bed, then yeah, she'd probably be asexual. Don't get me wrong. But like sex, like the feeling, the emotion, the adrenaline, everything, like you get a high from it. It's not like it's just sex because there's emotion, there's attachment, it's tangible, like there's a lot of feelings towards it. But there is a term that I recently found out called demisexual. You know what that is?
Nope.
It is when
you want to have sex with Demi Moore?
No. It just means you can only have sex. Well, your body rejects anyone that you don't have like a bond with or like a connection with. Okay. I had that happen to me. We stopped halfway and she was like, can we stop? I was like, yeah. Like, you want to put on your clothes? Like whatever makes you feel comfortable. And we sat down, we talked, and she's like, do you know what demisexual is? I was like, I don't. And she explained it to me. I was like, I thought we were bonding. I thought we were having a good time.
Another typical guy thing to say. Yeah.
Well, hey.
Well, but it is true. I mean, guys can have really quick connections just from a feeling of lust. That's enough of a connection. And that is a gender difference. And I believe that many women, even though some of them say that they don't need that emotional connection, I still have yet to believe. What? Why are you shaking your head?
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. No, but that's I like that term. I think that's an important term, and I'm kudos to you for honoring her, because that's a level of progress for men, I believe. I mean, look at what people being called to the carpet finally, starting with Bill Cosby and then Weinstein and all of that, and the Me Too movement it really truly is putting the brakes on an assumption that many men have, not all, but many men have that assumption that if you start kissing me and if you're kissing back and if you're not saying no right in the first, if you get to that point, that means the rest is okay. And you know, I'll be honest, I love to flirt, and I loved that feeling of you know, that first kiss, and when they put their hand on my face and we're kissing. But that does not mean that I want necessarily to take it to that next, you know, second, third base, first base even. You know, it's definitely not home run. But women have allowed themselves to be, you know, convinced, or just by, you know, what is that, tacit agreement, or not saying no. If I don't say no, it means yes. But, you know, there is a middle ground here. There's a balance of, you know, women have every right to say, oh, no, no, no. I just love kissing. Right. And the guys, you know, I'm so glad your younger generation is better at that than the ageless generation has been.
You know, it's kind of funny how similar you and I are, because I'm a natural flirt and I love flirting. But I always tell women, like when I'm out with them, like, hey, we're not having sex tonight. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally just for fun. Like, I love complimenting, I love touching, I love the whole 9 yards. But at the same time, I got to respect myself and respect her. And it's like, don't bring your numbers up. I mean, yeah, experience is great. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, if you gave yourself to everybody, then what's your self-worth? You know what I mean? At the same time, the reason why I love flirting is because it's practice. Practice, 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 practice. You know?
But when does flirting cross the line of teasing?
Ooh. When someone says stop.
When someone doesn't say stop.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really because I get myself into trouble all the time because I'm so direct, and I will ask, you know, in the first 2 minutes, are you single? Because I don't want to waste my time flirting with you. I did that the other day. There's a guy, he's in Oregon, and we met at some function, and it was so funny. But, you know, we're talking and we're friends, and I'll probably have he wants to come on the show. But it truly is, I'm glad that things are changing. Maybe not so much in polygamy, but I'm glad we're having this conversation because it is highlighting the necessary changes that have to happen in romance and flirting and relationships and sex and intimacy.
I feel like if you're gonna live your life with somebody, like your whole life, like that's a factor, you know? And like a lot of people nowadays, like they move in with each other before they get married. Like, why would you get married before you move in? Because you don't even know if you can handle that person moving in with you, you know? Same thing, same thing in bed. You know, it's like, like I haven't, you know, had my fun, whatever. So it's like it's a variable in the equation of life, you know?
Yeah, and we're running out of time, but we'll start this up next week. I gotta say this. What if you thought the woman was having a great time, and after months of having sex, she says, I've actually been faking, and I really don't, and I just wanted to please you, and I'm not into this. It doesn't feel good.
I'm
So
gone.
there's the cliffhanger that we're going to go to next week because we're out of time. But I think this is a very important topic. The other topic I want to talk about, I'm choosing next week, is why do we still think that marriages have to last a lifetime? When people change, and everybody changes after 10 years or whatever, why do we feel compelled till death do us part? Those are the two questions. I know you enjoyed the show. I know you're going to come back next Thursday. Actually, you're going to come back tomorrow because I'm going to do Fired Up Friday with Cynthia Kahi. I am Dr. Marissa, and this is
Same works.
And we are here on Straight Talk every Thursday morning. Please do come back. Please do chat with us. Please do share this episode. We are absolutely determined to talk about things that are open. It's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. Now go forth and have the best day ever.
Oh, I logged out. Can you close it? I'm sorry.
Oh.